You want to talk about a guy that knows the economy? I mean, heck, he was one of Donald Trump's top advisors on economic issues during his time in office. He is Steve Moore. He is joining us here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We are streaming back on the KCMO Talk Radio app and the iHeart app. And it's very clear when you look at the economic policies of Kamala Harris versus, Donald Trump, there are two very different paths. Steve Moore, what concerns you most economically speaking on the proposals that you've seen from Kamala Harris?
Well, good morning. And by the way, we'll find out more tonight, right? She finally is going to do an interview with the media with CNN. That should be kind of a soft one, but she's changed. Have you noticed that this woman has changed her position on virtually every major issue she's spoken out on? Did you see the other day she's now in favor of building the wall?
Yes.
She once called it the most un-American thing she'd ever, when Trump was building it, this is un-American, and now she says she wants it. So, look, I think the answer to your question is the thing I think that scares me the most is the tax plan that she's come out with, which is almost, according to the New York Times, a $5 trillion tax increase over 10 years. Only the top 1% are going to. Do you believe that, by the way, that only 1% of the people are going to pay that tax?
No.
Of course not. I mean, you'd have to be crazy to believe 1% of people are going to pay a $5 trillion tax. It's going to affect all of us. I think it'll kill the stock market. Anybody with a 401k plan, doubles the capital gains tax, brings forward the first ever tax on unrealized capital gains. So you'd have to pay a tax, say, on a stock, whether you sold the stock or not. By the way, my wife and I, just as an aside, we bought NVIDIA stock about 2 years ago. We've made a very nice gain on that. It's one of the few investments in my life I've really made a lot of money on. We've made about 10x on it. So the value, we bought about $30,000 worth of it, and now it's worth $300,000. But we don't have that money, right? We still own the stock. Under the Kamala Harris plan, we'd have to pay a 25% tax on that $300,000. It's crazy.
Well, I know who's paying for lunch next time we get together, Steve Moore. Jeez.
I wish the rest of my portfolio done that.
Well, let's talk about that because I used an example this morning, the exact opposite. I bought a bunch of Roku stock a few years ago. It was at $40 a share. Roku peaked at $4.75 a share in 2021, but I thought it was going to $1,000 like a dope, so I didn't do anything with it. It's now at $65. So, if I had paid taxes on those unrealized gains in 2021, but now it's down 80%, no one's sending me any money back, Steve Moore.
Yeah, that's the question. Would you, if you're going to tax the unrealized capital gains, are you going to refund people on their capital losses? And you know what the answer to that question is? Of course not. Mm-hmm. And so this is a really dangerous idea. I would also say that it's gotten a lot of publicity, but she, wants to have for the first time, basically like grocery store police. It'll go through the grocery store aisles and make sure that, the Winn-Dixie or the Giant or the Safeway or the 7-Eleven isn't raising their prices too much. I mean, what is this? Are we the Soviet Union now where the government's setting the prices for everything? Mm-hmm. So a lot of bad ideas coming out of this. And I want to, before I forget, I want to refer to your listeners, if you want a comparison of the Trump record, when he was in office for 4 years versus the Biden-Harris record in the nearly 4 years they've been in office, go to unleashprosperitynow.com, and we looked at about 25 statistics, the standard measurements of how an economy is doing, what happened with jobs, what happened to real incomes, what happened to gas prices, what happened to inflation, what happened to interest rates, what happened to mortgage payments, what happened to small business conditions, the stock market. On virtually every single one of those measurements, Trump does significantly better than Biden and Harris.
Mm-hmm. So, Steve Moore, if Donald Trump's back in the White House and he's in charge of trying to turn this economy back around and you're back in there in some kind of advisory role, and we hope that's the case.
I'm not going to give up this spot I've got with you every once a week. I mean, I'm not.
You can keep doing it. That's even better. Then you can tell us what Trump's eating for breakfast every day. So, what are you advising him on day one to get this thing back on track?
Well, come on. He knows exactly what he's going to do. The great thing about Trump is, we do have some really good, there's, Larry Kudlow and myself and my friend Kevin Hassett and so many really, really smart people who are helping him. And so it's an honor to be in that crowd. But the point I'm making is, like, Donald Trump knows what he wants to do. He's a businessman. I think one of the key things, if I may, that people need to consider when they go into the voting booth. And I know a lot of people don't like Trump's behavior. They don't like what he has, sometimes his insults, sometimes his antics. But if you go into the voting booth and you're voting your pocketbook, who's going to be best for allowing me to pay my bills so I can get a real wage increase, so I can get a better job, so I can make sure that we have the money to send my kids to college or whatever it might be, then there's no question that Donald Trump is far superior. And the question is, in terms of his records, the question is why. And I would submit to you that if you look at Donald Trump, he's a businessman, right? And very successful businessman. He became a billionaire in terms of he built things, he built businesses, he employed thousands and thousands of people. He knows how to make a payroll. Kamala Harris has never done anything in the private sector her whole life. She knows nothing about business, as you can see from her, tax plan. And so I think my point is, I think Trump knows exactly what he wants to do. We're going to start drilling for all the energy that we have. We're going to start getting rid of some of these onerous regulations that are holding back our small businesses. We're going to make the Trump tax cuts permanent. We're going to rescind hundreds of billions of dollars that Biden wants to spend that we can't afford, so we can start to make at least a small dent in this enormous national debt. But we'll be ready to go on day one.
No doubt about it. Now, if you were looking at this, you mentioned the national debt in particular. I think we're at $35 trillion.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to touch it. Nobody wants to talk about, the things that actually have to happen to try to get it back on track. And let's be honest, that is some adjustments to some of those key things, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. How do you actually start turning things around, at least, without maybe touching those things, what Trump says he's not going to do?
Well, a couple of responses on that. One is that the most important thing, if we're going to turn around the debt, the most important measurement is, like, how big is our debt relative to our economy and our ability to pay those bills. Well, you've got to have economic growth. You don't hear Kamala Harris talking about economic growth, but it's really critical. We've got to get our economic growth rate up to 3 to 4%. And if we can do that, and I believe Trump can because he did it before, then what you start to do is bend that curve downward. And so instead of the debt going up and up and up and up and up every year as a share of our economy, it starts to come down and becomes much more manageable. So the first thing is we got to get people back to work. We got to get the economy firing on all cylinders, and I think Trump will do that. The second thing we're going to do is, I just mentioned this, but I want to expand on it. Let me give you one example. Did you know there's a $300 billion, not 300 million, 300 billion with a B, green energy slush fund in the budget?
I did not know that. That's news to me.
300 billion. And Kamala voted for this stuff. And it's all this crap. Oh, we're going to build windmills and we're going to have all these solar subsidies and electric batteries and everybody's going to buy electric cars. By the way, electric car industry is stalled out under Biden. And so let's just get rid of that. We can't afford to spend $300 billion we don't have. So Trump could come in, and the technical term for this is impound the funds. In other words, I know Congress has authorized the money, but we're not going to spend it because we can't afford it. And we're going to assert that we have the authority not to spend money that we can't afford to spend. Every president, by the way, from George Washington through Richard Nixon, had that power not to spend money. Every CEO of every company has the power to not spend money if they don't need to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. You're spot on about that, Steve Moore. Well, it's going to be a very interesting next couple of months to see exactly how this plays out. I hope that the economic policies...
Do you think Dana Bash is going to be tough on Kamala tonight, or is it just going to be a soft pillow?
No, it's going to be a soft pillow, and even when the pillow maybe gets a little harder, there's going to be Tim Walz with the stiff arm, the old coach's move. I mean, it's going to be a joke. It's going to be a joke.
Isn't it? I mean, I find it so, and the Wall Street Journal had an editorial about this, this morning saying, wait a minute, most people don't know what Kamala really stands for. Most people, don't pay that close attention to politics. So we all kind of want to hear what her positions are. And she's got to have her coach sitting next to her on the couch in case she stumbles,
Well, I've heard the reason Tim Walz is sitting next to her is so he can actually learn what her policies are as well, which makes sense.
By the way, did you see the New York Post headline yesterday, their cover photo?
I did, but what was it again? Because there's been a lot of good ones lately.
It was so fun. It was a classic New York Post headline. It had a big picture of Kamala smiling with a MAGA hat on.
Build the wall.
All of Trump's positions, right? Now she's for the wall.
Oh, that is out. Whoever does that work is not getting paid enough. Oh, that's great. Steve, thank you as always for being here on KCMO in Kansas City.
When I get that job and that cushy job in the White House when Trump wins, I'm going to insist that, but I have to be able to do Monday every week.
And maybe you can help us out.
My contract.
And you can get the boss on once in a while, maybe like quarterly. That'd be great. Kansas City loves Donald Trump.
Yeah.
You know that. Right. Steve, thank you, my friend. Care. Have a great day. Bye. All right. That is Steve Moore on KCMO.